What is going on, guys? The Inside the Booth podcast here, and today we're talking about the New York Football Giants and preseason, some training camp news and all that, even some stuff going on around the NFC East. But the New York Giants have had two strong preseason games. First off, the game against the Buffalo Bills, which was very fun to watch, and then their recent matchup, the MetLife Bowl, where the Giants defeated the Jets 31-12. Two very good victories, right? And the good thing is that they put up a lot of points, right? And that is the big thing. I know it is preseason, so they're not playing, the top dogs on the Buffalo Bills defense and the top dogs on the New York Jets defense. But I like to see how this ball, the ball is moving on the offense, right? It's moving well. They're going no huddle. They're trying different things. They're trying to implement some stuff that, Jaxson Dart did at Ole Miss, and they're implementing it into their current offense. A lot of screenplays, a lot of offense, a lot of fun watching this team so far. And, the first question I do have for the New York Giants is how is that going to, happen, right? What is the week one offense going to look like? Is there going to be a lot of screen passing? Is there going to be a lot of running the football? Or are they going to mainly target Malik Nabers? But talking about Malik Nabers, now that I brought him up, he has not practiced in 11 days when the source came out about that he was, having some back issues and a bunch of stuff going on, toe injury, all of that. So we need to see Malik Nabers back on the field. I'm not really concerned if he doesn't play a preseason game. He has shown that he can play football, and, he is a football player. He's not just a guy that plays football. He's a real-time talent. He's easily a top 10 wide receiver. You can make an argument that he's in the top 7. But, a lot to like out of Jaxson Dart. A lot to like for the quarterbacks. And that's one of the winners, for this team in preseason. Oh my gosh. In preseason, that has been one of the winners for this team, is that the offense and the quarterbacks have played well. All of them have played well. Tommy DeVito, Jaxson Dart, Jameis Winston is Jameis Winston. He's solid. Solid backup role. And Russell Wilson, who is the named starter for week 1. And I'm going to throw this out there right now because I already saw a tweet about it. Jaxson Dart has been good. He has been good in preseason. He's passed the eye test. He's done all of that. But let's not rush this guy and think that he's going to start week 1 for this team. He's not going to start week 1. I guarantee that. And I think, if anything, if Russ suffers some sort of minor injury that he can't start week 1, I think they would go to Jameis Winston. Because you shouldn't rush Jaxson Dart. He is a young player that still has a lot to learn in this league. A lot of the plays that have been drawn up are not very complex, in my opinion, for Jaxson Dart. And, their quick throws, their quick out routes, their quick, quick screens to Dante, Miller or Devin Singletary and all of that. Russell Wilson is a veteran in this league, and that's why I believe that he, is the answer for now. Now, Jaxson Dart could very well start later down in the season if they're not getting the production they'd like out of Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson last season was good in the first half, but then started to fall off in the second half in terms of production and stats. So we'll see what we get out of Russell Wilson in week 1. We know that this Commanders team is beatable, but it's going to be very tough to beat this team. And there is a lot to look forward to this week 1 matchup, because of all the young talent with Abdul Carter on the Giants side and, Cam Scatterboo, who I don't think is going to be ready for week 1, but that's another Giants draft pick that they recently took. Marcus Bow has looked phenomenal at the offensive line. And then for the Commanders, you got your young studs in Jaden Daniels. Terry McLaurin is still very good. And, a lot of good talent on both teams. But let's get back to, the updates and all of that. Russell Wilson, like I said, has been good in camp and played well. Had a very good passing play to Bo Collins. That was phenomenal. The deep ball, he still has it. And that's the biggest thing that I took away from when they signed Russell Wilson, that he still has a very good, deep throwing arm talent, and the Giants have not had that in so long. And the Giants can get explosive plays from Russell Wilson still. They can move the football down the field, and they could score with Russell Wilson. When the Giants, were playing with Daniel Jones in that quarterback room, they weren't getting anything in the first half. They were getting stuff in the second half. It wasn't, anything eye-opening, but they would be better in the second half. I think for Russell Wilson, you're going to get 4 good quarters, hopefully, out of him. Now, Jaxson Dart, getting into him, because he's been the main talk in preseason. Some Giants fans think he should start already. Just start him. He looks good now. I'm going to shut that down. You got to let the kid develop. And I'm not going to allow... Well, it really doesn't matter to me because I am not in charge. I just talk about the Giants, but I don't think starting Dart does anything good. I think you're rushing the quarterback, and the last thing the Giants need is to rush, Jaxson Dart. But looking statistically, you gotta like what you see. 12 of 19, 154 passing yards, and a touchdown to Montrell Washington I believe that's who it was, or it was Humphrey. It was one of those two that scored the touchdown, I believe. Don't quote me on it. I'm probably wrong. But, a solid game against the Buffalo Bills. I liked how he was rushing the football. I like the QB design run. I think that's going to be something Brian Daboll will use eventually when Jaxson Dart does take over the starting quarterback role for the New York Giants. And in Game 2, this was when he was really solid, I think. 87.5% completion rate. I want to say he completed like 13 passes or something in a row. Maybe even a little bit less. Maybe 6 of 6. It was one of those numbers. But 14 of 16, 137 passing yards, so a touchdown and a rushing touchdown. Nearly had 2 passing touchdowns, but the wide receiver got stopped at the 1-yard line. He seems very comfortable, Jaxson Dart, under Brian Daboll's system, along with offensive coordinator Mike Kafka. I like what I see at a Dart. I like the development. I like what I see at a Jaxson Dart, and it does make me excited to see what he is down the road when he does eventually, if he starts this year. I was a little bit against starting him this year and just roll Jameis and Russell Wilson, but the Giants are building something fun, right? If Jaxson Dart is your guy, that's the first step of the puzzle, is to get your future quarterback for the next 5 years, right? And, you have your wide receiver one with Malik Nabers. The offensive line has looked great so far in preseason. We'll get to them in a bit, and one player that I do have to talk about. But you have your wide receiver one, you have your RB one in Tyrone Tracy, and drafting Scadaboo is, a good pick, right? In the value that you got him, I like the move. It's unfortunate that he's been dealing with a hamstring injury and has not been able to play. But I think when Cam Scadaboo is eventually playing, I think he's going to be a fun player to watch for the New York Giants. Now, the other thing, too, is I get Jaxson Dart isn't taking on the top defenses against the Buffalo Bills and the New York Jets. But, in camp and in practices, he is going up against Abdul Carter and Kayvon and Brian Burns. Dexter Lawrence is getting in there here and now. But, the big thing is that he's getting a lot of impact plays, and I get it. They're mainly from screens. But, it'll be interesting how how things go from week 1 to now when they start Jaxson Dart. Offensive line, one of the biggest issues I've talked about since covering this team, when we started covering this team, right? The offensive line has always been an issue for the New York Giants, and that's why they've been one of the bottom offenses in the league since Brian Daboll has taken over. 2022, you were good, but, ever since then, the offense has not been where Brian Daboll and the Giants wanted to be. And I believe Brian Daboll is the guy to help out this offense, along with, Mike Kafka being your offensive coordinator. They just need better, better players, and I think they're getting that. And the guy that I hinted earlier was Marcus Bow. I mean, the 5th-round pick out of Purdue, I didn't expect him to fall this far in the draft. I don't think the Giants did either. But I like what I see out of Marcus Bell. The footwork, the hands, all of that is very, very good. And I mean, one pressure on 60 snaps is something that I really like. You know, I don't want my quarterback getting beat up, and especially that he could play left tackle and right tackle. That's awesome because, you know, Andrew Thomas is expected to play week 1. But if he's not, if he's not ready to go, I have no issue with sliding in Marcus Bell over James Hudson at left tackle. I think James Hudson is decent depth. You know, he's not some spectacular offensive lineman. But I do think the depth of this team is a lot better. And, you know, hopefully you get better development out of Evan Neal. He's looked better at guard. Had a few bad plays in the Jets game. One leading to a quarterback hit. But regardless, you know, Evan Neal at guard is better than Evan Neal at tackle. And, you know, he doesn't have to move his feet as much to the outside to, you know, play against these top edge rushers. But, you know, like I said, if Andrew Thomas isn't good to go, I think Marcus Bell should be the guy. So far, this offensive line, 89 pass attempts from the quarterbacks, only 2 sacks allowed. That is phenomenal through 2 weeks. And I think if they are able to get that type of, you know, offensive lineman production, I think they got a good chance at winning week 1 and potentially Dallas. But, you know, like I said, 2 divisional opponents in your first 2 games is not easy. And that really sets the tone of your season. Because divisional games, they have a little bit more, you know, a little bit more of a bite to them, in my opinion. But let's get into some rumors around the New York Giants. Jameis Winston, rumored to potentially be traded. Teams have called for Jameis Winston. If I had to take a guess of some teams, I think, you know, the Saints are probably one of the top, you know, rumored players. I think, you know, with all the injuries with Cleveland, I don't think they'll trade for him, but maybe he's a potential, you know, reunion with Jameis Winston with Joe Flacco starting week 1. You know, those 2 teams really came to mind. I mean, maybe another bottom feeder in the NFL, potentially, or even just, you know, I think teams that need a starter are really going to be interested in Jameis Winston. So, like I said, you know, I don't think you want, you know, a old Joe Flacco. I don't think you'd want Tyler Shook, in my opinion. I think Jameis Winston on paper is better, and I think just overall, I would rather have Jameis play over Tyler Shook. But, you know, the Saints are kind of like the team that I think has been probably calling Joe Shane the most. But, you know, like I said, let's just recap these 2 games, and then we'll get out of here for this podcast. But, you know, don't forget to like and subscribe. We have been doing very well in the YouTube Shorts and overall YouTube growth. Don't forget to follow us on TikTok. We're at, you know, somewhere in the 1,500 followers. You know, of course, road to 2K for that. Instagram, got to get more followers there as well. But I appreciate all the support and you guys watching. You know, a quick recap. Dart has played well, and I've liked what I've seen out of him. Don't expect him to start anytime soon, but maybe down, you know, maybe after the bye week, you give him a few games, or just before the bye week. Cordell Flott had a really nice pass breakup. You know, I think he might win the CB2 role over Deonte Banks, and that was one of the big battles Deonte Banks had, was potentially, you know, this fight, you know, for the job at, you know, at the cornerback too. Defense has had some strong plays. Abdul Carter had a pressure against the Jets and had a few pressures against the Bills. Overall, I'm happy with how the Giants stand right now. I really am. I'm liking what Brian Dable and Joe Shane are building. The rookies, I think they're going to be very fun to watch. Is this going to be a team that's going to win, you know, 9 games, 10 games and make the playoffs? Probably not. But I think this is a team that shouldn't be overlooked. And I think that they are going to be competitive and maybe even steal a few games because of their good defensive front. And they invested a lot of money into this defensive front with Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns, Abdul Carter top pick, Kayvon Thibodeau top pick. So, you know, a lot to look forward to that defense. One of the big things that I am looking forward to week 1 is going to be the defense and getting to Jaden Daniels and hopefully getting to some sacks, because we know Jaden Daniels is going to be able to escape some few times, and we got to wrap him up and get sacks and, force them to punt the football. And then offensively, I think I'm really looking forward to the second year of Malik Nabers and Tyrone Tracy. Another player, too, is honestly Theo Johnson. I think down the road he had some good games. That Dallas game he had before he hurt his foot or whatever it was, ankle. Regardless, I like what I see out of the guys. I'm very excited for this team. Don't forget to like and follow, and of course, leave a comment on your thoughts on Jaxson Dart and the New York Giants. Anyways, guys, that is me signing off, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.